So he kept it a secret. Anyway, Rabbi Ephraim died. His son, who was the Avbeit in a broader, starts going through his stuff. And he sees over there that he had a commitment to marry his daughter, who's this rabbi, great Rabbi Gershon Kitova's sister. And the Baal Shem Tov has a shidduch with him. So he says, okay, we have to find the man. My father wanted him to marry the man. So they called for the Baal Shem Tov, Yisrael ben Eliezer as he was known. They called for him. He comes to town and he specifically dressed like a schlepper. He took his worst clothes. He didn't have much anyway, but he took his worst clothes. And he dressed in broken clothes, jeans, torn clothes, but not the jeans. You know, the jeans that are torn, but not the ones that are done like that way for the fashion. You know. Okay. Anyway, he went in. He was in wood chopper clothes, like a peasant's clothing, and he arrived there. And this Rabbi Gershon Kitova almost collapsed. His sister's going to marry this chap. Well, you're out your mind. He's a great rabbi. His father's a great rabbi. They're going to marry this simple wood chopper. So they said, forget about it. He said, listen, I'm going to speak to my sister. His sister said, if that was my father wanted, he knew what he was doing. Come on, are you crazy? So he goes back again and he shows tells the whole story. Anyway, he says this, if that's what your sister said. Now what happened is that the Baal Shem Tov, so they got married and he moved to town. But the Baal Shem Tov, he completely hid himself. He acted like he was a complete ignoramus. It became so embarrassing for Rabbi Gershon Kitova to have this brother-in-law like that. Oh, but before he got married, one more thing to the story, important thing. The Baal Shem Tov, before he married her, he revealed to her a little bit of who he was. But he swore her to secrecy. So she could never tell anyone. But she was now happy to be married because he was married to this hidden tzaddik. He was married to this hidden righteous individual. So she was happy to be married to him. So they got married, and this Gershon Kitova said to his sister, listen, you guys, you've got to leave town. I can't handle this. So he sent them out of town, out of Broadway, sent them to some place in the mountains over there, and gave them a place to live, and provided for them a horse. And they used to take dirt, to the town and sell it there, and that's how they made their meager living. And that's how the Baal Shem Tov lived. And for the Baal Shem Tov, for himself, it was a great blessing, because he spent all that time in meditation, in talking to God, and praying in the mountains, in the fields, and it was apparently a magnificent, beautiful place. So for him, it was a tremendous blessing, and he went with it, and that's how he spent his days. So I've related now the details of the shidduch. So this is how the Baal Shem Tov gets married. Now this is I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned before, this was his second marriage. He married his first wife passed away, and by the way, this lady that he married was a divorcee. This daughter of Rabbi Ephraim had been divorced, and they say that the tradition is that the Baal Shem Tov saw in Ruach HaKodesh, in divine providence, that this was his bashert, this is who he had to marry. That's who he married. Okay? Pretty interesting. This is just a map. Okay. Basically, it's somewhere around over here where he was born, and this is over here. Around over here is where he finally settles. He settles in Mezibush. Mezibush is around about over here, somewhere just north of Moldova. Round about over there. That's where the Baal Shem Tov lived. Now, let's discuss a little bit his greatness. He was tremendously humble and did everything to hide his greatness until reaching age 36. So until age 36, he basically hid himself almost completely, and almost nobody knew that he was a great holy individual. He spent hours and days fasting, praying, and learning. We've discussed this. He knew every aspect and detail of the written and oral law. He was an expert in the Kabbalistic works such as the Zohar, Tikkunei Zohar, and Kitvei Arizal. So in terms of scholarship, and this is very, very important, in terms of scholarship, he was a scholar par excellence, no question about it. There's a tradition that the Baal Shem Tov would never go to sleep with any money, and he would give his only possessions and food to the poor. He made sure that before he went to sleep at night, he was penniless. He would never go to sleep if he had any money. Before he went to sleep at night, he would give away any penny that he had to the poor. Now, this is not recommended practice. Okay? Unless I give you my bank account details. But then it may become recommended practice. But seriously, it's not recommended practice. The sages say that it's not good for a person shouldn't give away more than 20% of their finances, because they themselves could become impoverished, and that's not good. That's not the right thing to do. However, there's certain things that certain righteous people like this did, that they were on a different level. They knew 100% that they had nothing to worry about, that Hashem was going to provide for them. But that kind of behavior is not for us mere mortals. That was for the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov pretty much alone. His students reported that he had Ruach HaKodesh, he could see angels and communicate with Eliyahu Hanavi. He often reported that he could see, there's many stories, there's a story that somebody came to the house one day and he tried to encourage the person to repent. The person wouldn't repent. So he said to his brother-in-law, this was after he was revealed, he said to his brother-in-law said, "What are you doing to the guy? What do you make him repent?" He said, "Didn't you see the angel of death, the Malach HaMavet was on his shoulder, the angel of death." And he followed him, and the person subsequently passed away. So there are many, many stories of the Baal Shem Tov's Ruach HaKodesh, his visionary abilities. Now, this is very important. We'll come back to this in a moment. So, in around the year 1740, for the last 20 years of his life, the Baal Shem Tov moved to Mezibush. So basically from this broader region, he was around there, and then he moved and he settled in Mezibush, which was his home until the end of his life. People used to come, great rabbis from all over the Ukraine, and all over that region, all over the world, would come to visit the Baal Shem Tov and to learn from him in Mezibush. I'll show you in a moment. I've been there. There's a house of learning, which they say was the Beit Midrash, still intact. They've kind of refurbished it. And his original gravesite is, of course, there, and the tent where it is. And it's like on top of a hill. It's a magnificent, magnificent, beautiful place. And that's where the Baal Shem Tov spent the last 20 years of his life. Now, he is known, he is considered the father of the Hasidic movement. And I've written over here a revolutionary approach and emphasis. The Baal Shem Tov, there's no question, he started off, he began. And whether you say it's revolutionary or he was just renewing previous ideas, that's questionable. Sometimes throughout history, there's certain philosophical and spiritual ideas that can get lost. And someone has to come and reveal them or re-reveal them. Come in. There's certain times during history, during Jewish history, that certain ideas and ideals and spiritual understandings could get lost. And you need someone to reveal them. But there is another concept, which is a very interesting concept. There's a concept that the sages say, that the Talmud sometimes says, Makom hinichu li avotenu lehitgadel bo. What does that mean? My forefathers left me a place for greatness. Meaning to say that sometimes God doesn't reveal everything to a particular generation, even though there might be a greater stature, because he leaves certain secrets to reveal to later generations. So it is possible that the Baal Shem Tov really was a revolutionary, but he based all his teachings, and this is very important, the difference